Hey, this weekend I am TOing Sealand Open again, Sealand Open24, and it will be an amazing weekend full of very hard gaming and even better friendships. This is a meta video for that. So let's go, just a sec, I will show you the slideshow. So the meta of Sealand Open, I'm going to talk you through the usual meta stuff, and then at the end I'm going to show you two of the lists going, just because I think they're cool and they really illustrate some of the army builds that I've been talking about on this channel. The event itself is blue on blue, so standard competitive. Allies can fight other allies, Axis powers can fight other Axis powers. And it's 4 games of 750 points. And then your 750 point list has to carry over into your 1250 point list, which you fight 2 games with on the second day. It can be single or dual generic reinforced platoons. You have 1 tank slot, not 2. And you can take a maximum of 1 8+ armored vehicle of any sort. So cutting down on tanks, basically. And the order dice spread is for 750 points. We have an order dice spread of between 8 and 18, so 10 more order dice, which is insane. Like 18 is the highest, and that is from Benny, who plays Horde Russians. So a lot of small units, but also a lot of very, very cheap units. It's his standard go-to list. Benny really knows how to play this, so I'm expecting great things from that. 8 order dice, the lowest is potentially too low, but it's still more than 1 order dice per 100 points, so it should be all right. But the average order dice count is 11.8. The median, the most normal thing to have in your order dice count is 12 order dice for this event. So the most people have 12 order dice out of all the players here. For 1250 points, the order dice spread is between 15 and 27. Again, Benny with his Horde list has 27, but we also have an MSU list that has 27 order dice. I'm sorry, my computer is pinging away here. So some of the lists that spam order dice, that spam small units or have Horde builds, really have very, very high order dice counts. The average is 19.9, and the most normal thing, the most normal order dice count to have is 21 order dice. So that is fairly high for 1250, and I think that's because you're going to have to take something other than tanks, which means that people have invested in teams and all of that, which means that their order dice counts go up. For nations, we are seeing 7 Soviets, 7 Brits, 3 Germans, 3 American, 3 Finns, which I was really pleased about, having 3 Finnish lists. That's really cool. And just 1 list of Japan, Italy, and France each. So the minor nations are not really well represented here, but the 2 powerhouse nations of the Soviets and Brits are really going strong still. Here at the end of version 2, in the fall now, we're going to see version 3. That may change everything up a bit. It will. I'm betting on that. I had imagined that we would see more Italians. At the Danish Nationals just a month back, we did see a lot of Italians, but they haven't really showed up here. I'm guessing because Soviets and Brits, because of the pack, the composition of the pack for Danish Nationals, didn't really work out for Soviets and Brits, but they did for Italians. And now, since the pack for Sealand Open is okay for Brits and Soviets, people are taking them again. So there's still something with the pack that sort of pushes Italy down to a second-ranked nation somehow, which I think is a pity, but yeah, I think Italians still can really work if you train with them. the builds that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of mixed bag builds. So there is 11 lists that have mixed bag elements. There are 3 faux tank, I didn't write that down, 3 assault Gurkhas, but 4 MSU lists. One of them a Soviet list, and 3 of them being American FSSF scout lists, which is really cool. And I'm going to show you one of those lists. We had 2 leaf blower lists, a couple of greatest hits, no Death Stars at all, not a single one. So for me, that was also really interesting. But there are a few skirmish lists as well. That spread is pretty normal. I'd like to see such a lot of mixed bag and skirmish and greatest hits list. These 3 list types are very close and very similar in many respects because they're balanced, right? They lean into the shooting part of the game, the maneuver part of the game. And that is really cool. So, list ranking. We have I've applied my usual list ranking format on this event as well. So a 1 list would be a bad list, a 2 list would be a thematic list, a 3 list would be a standard tournament list, a 4 a strong tournament list that could potentially win, and a 5 the best list I could make, not something that I could improve on at all. And for me, the 750 points lists were between 2.5 and 4. There were no true bad lists at all. There were a couple which had made thematic choices, but which still also had competitive choices, so they were 2.5s. And there was a couple that was really strong. The average was a 3.2, so I'm guessing that my expectations or whatever is that a lot of people will bring something that's really strong, and they did. There's a lot of 3.5, 4 lists in this pack here, or in this bunch. 1250. For 1250, we again had a couple that were 2.5s, but since we got up in points, there were actually fewer of those than there were for 750. And there was a single 5er list, a list that I didn't think I could improve in any way, even if I had tried. I think that was the strongest it could possibly be, and I won't show you that one today, but it's a Gurkha list. The average for me was again a little higher for the 1250. Again, I'm guessing because people had points, they could really build out and make what they wanted to make. So it turned out to be a lot more powerful in many respects, and at least in my estimation of what they were doing. So that's the ranking here. Which means that my predictions are that these 5 people will at least be in the top 10. I'm going to say that, not the top 5. But I also think that the winner shall be found amongst these 5 people here. They have the strongest list, and each of them are also a good player. So we have Michael Fie, who just became the Danish champion. National champion, he came 3rd at the Danish Nationals, having beaten number 2 as well. He lost the finals against the winner of the Danish Nationals, Aaron. He is bringing 11 order dice for his 750 points, 22 order dice for his 1250, so very good, solid amount of order dice. He's bringing Gurkhas. So Salt Brits. He, for me, had a 4 list in the low one, in the low order dice, the low points cost, the 750. But a 5, I could not improve that list, even if I had wanted to, for the 1250. It's one of the strongest Gurkha lists I've seen, and the strongest I could imagine for this pack. So it had 5 units of Gurkhas, a Dhaka Steward, 4 motorcycles, and a lot of small teams, and a unit of engineers as well. I mean, it just had a lot of different moving parts that could really hurt you. And I played against that list as well and lost twice. I also think that Benny, who has previously won tournaments here in Denmark, who usually comes in the top 5 as well, with his 18 to 27 order Russian horde. He is bringing like large units of Strafbat, inexperienced dudes with rifles, and then double forward artillery observers, which, if they land, can really mess up the enemy. And he is famous for being lucky with his dice rolls. So that should be a thing that could happen. His list for me, the low order dice, not the low order dice, the 750 point list for me is a little weaker than Michael's, and that is because I think the many inexperienced and small units does mean he's slightly vulnerable in kill points missions. For me, his lists were 3.5 and a 4. So strong and very strong competitive lists. Then we have David Hasselfeld, and his list I am actually going to show you in a minute. He is bringing MSU, American MSU, so multiple small units based around the FSSF Scout units. He has 15 order dice in his 750 point list and 27 order dice in his 1250 point list. For me, his list, and it's a gamble because these MSU lists, the FSSF lists, are not something we regularly see. It's an experiment, and I think David is one of the champions of this experiment. He's one of the few guys who's really trying to push this as a new competitive meta, and I think that there's something there. For me, his lists are a 4 and a 4, really strong competitive lists. And that being said, is I have played against FSS lists, even with my Gurkhas and my very, very competitive lists, and they are really hard to beat. They're really, really hard to beat because you'll get pinned and you won't be able to charge. So that is an interesting experiment. Then we have Simon H, who is bringing another British list, Gurkhas. Simon is potentially not like a top competitive player, but he is a fairly good standard player. By the way, David is, of course, on the Danish national team. He was with us at the WTC, as has Benny and Michael been too. Simon hasn't, but he's bringing a 13-21 order dice Gurkha list. For me, that was a 4 and a 4. So a little less powerful than Michael Fia's Gurkhas, but still very, very powerful, very strong competitive lists. I think that there were slight improvements that for both of these 750 and 1250. I think I could have improved those a little bit in each level, but not by much. And finally, I have Jonas Renlin from Sweden, who is on the Swedish national team. He is bringing a 10 to 16 order dice German list. Now, this is lower than average in order dice count, which is what I think he'll struggle with. But once you see the list, you'll know that there is such a lot of power in that list. It leans into multi-rocket launchers and autocannons. And for me, that is a 3.5 and a 3.5. Potentially, with Jonas being a very good player, he can bring that up to a level where he can compete with these other guys here as well. So let us go and watch those two lists. I wanted to show you Jonas's list and David's list. So let's start with David's 1250 here. Oh, and by the way, the lists are all linked in the description for this video. Just you can go and watch them yourself as well. So 27 order dice, US reinforced. So an inexperienced second lieutenant, and then FSSS scout teams. And I have to remember, I always say this wrong, they don't have forward deployment. But they do have tough fighters, Freddy's fighters, which I can't remember what does, is something to do with their movement or something. Masters of concealment, so they get extra protection from cover if they've hidden. They've got an escape reaction, and they are recon troops. So let's go and look all those rules up just a second. So escape reaction, that's good. French riders. Ooh, they can scale mountainous or hilly, impassable terrain. So there's a special rule for how they move into terrain. Cool. Not massively useful because, yeah, when hidden, they are discovered. So they're harder to discover when once hidden. Cool. Recon troops, they spot hidden enemy units from further away. Cool. The best thing about these is, of course, the escape reaction, because that means that they can move away from anything that is threatening them. They're small teams, and that 36 points is why he can boost his order dice count to 27. It's insanely good. And each one of them is veteran, very survivable, very hard to kill, and at the same time they still dish out pins. So that is what makes the MSU good. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each platoon. That's 10 FSSF scout units. Inexperienced medium mortar, the way the Danes like to run it. Sniper team, regular. Flamethrower team, regular. 114mm rocket launcher, inexperienced, very cheap for what it does. Horse-drawn limber for that. I think it's a mule toe, actually. Can't type in mule toe in Easy Army, so that's why he's type horse-drawn limber. Recce Jeep with an MMG and a Lee. Now, he is predicting here that there'll be a lot of stewards. There aren't that many in the lists here, but there are some. And his M3 Lee will, of course, with the double AT guns and MGs, be very, very anti-steward. And still very dangerous to infantry as well with a 2-inch HE. He brings a white scout car because he has such a lot of points that he's going to spend on something with all the small units. This has an MMG and MGs as well. Second platoon is another inexperienced lieutenant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams again, so 10 scout teams in total. Medium mortar inexperienced sniper team, flamethrower team, light arty, that's a howitzer, another mule, and a recce jeep, and a jeep to transport one of the flamethrowers in. That is it. That's how an MSU list looks. Look at all those small teams. Everything is basically small team in this list, right? Sniper teams, flamethrower teams. The only thing that isn't is the crew for his medium mortars and for his rocket launcher and artillery piece. That is really, really cool. David, I really hope you do well with this list. That is how you build an MSU list. That's basically as good as it gets, I think. And then I wanted to show you Jonas's list. Let me just find it. Where did I put it? Alphabetically. Brain not working. It isn't here. Why is it not here? Because it's there. Right, here we go. So this is his German platoon. 16 order dice, 1250. Second lieutenant with an extra man because he's using a German one, right? So 60 points. Brandenburgers, that is to control the enemy's outflanking. Then Storm Pioneers, veteran, with a flamethrower and a Panzerfaust, really dangerous to both infantry and armor and can split fire those. So the Panzerfaust goes into the armor, the flamethrower kills the infantry units next to it. Then Osttruppen, to stay back and stay on objectives. Gewehr 43, double tap sniper, bought veteran, of course. Flamethrower team, regular. Nebelwerfer, inexperienced. So that's the first multi-rocket launcher here. 250/9, that's the light autocannon. Polizeitank for the Daka. A truck to transport the pioneers. And then the second platoon here, another lieutenant with another man. Again, Storm Pioneers, so double Storm Pioneers, but this one has a light machine gun and a grenade launcher here. That's the only thing I disagree with here. I think he should have bought a flamethrower again. SS Cavalry, nice 7-man unit, veteran, very dangerous, mounted. That means a tough fighter, has assault rules, and can really go up along the flanks. So if he gets a few dice out of the enemy early on via his multi-rocket launchers, for instance, he can really push that flanking cavalry, supported by a really good flanking half-track and police tank. Then the Howling Cow, that's the second multi-launcher. We have a 6-rat with a light autocannon, that's the second light autocannon, and another truck for Pioneers. That is it. That is Jonas's list, which I think could potentially go and end up in the top as well. To everyone going, good luck, and I will see you this weekend. Cheers.